I'm always working on a new book, but I wanted to talk to you about this book that I finished at the end of last year. It's called Faded Memories, Broken Dreams. Try to imagine waking up in total darkness. You feel you're squeezed up, you're confined inside something, but you can't tell what because it's dark. You put your hands out, you start trying to feel the sides, but you can't tell what it is. You can use your senses a little bit to try to smell the container and listen to the noises that's being made. You can feel movement as you're being moved. So what would you do in that kind of circumstance? I have attached an excerpt from the book and I invite you to listen to it.
I was jolted awake, confused, unsure of where I was. I don't know how long I had been unconscious, but I was still groggy and trying to figure out my location. My heart was pounding. I was sweaty. I knew the place was dark and had a damp, musty smell. Wherever I was in a small, confined space, and I was moving. I could reach out and touch the sides of my confinement and tell from the touch that it was a wooden structure. In fact, I could tell it was a rough wooden container of some kind as my fingers gently floated over the texture of the panels beneath them. I felt the structure sway back and forth like I was floating, and I could feel some liquid seepage through a few cracks in the sides. Once in a while, the structure would bounce like it struck something that propelled it in the air. The wood had some degree of rot. I could both feel it and smell it. I also didn't know how long I had been inside the container. It was pitch dark, and I had zero visibility inside whatever I was inside of. My memory was very limited at the moment, and the pounding headache assaulting me gave me a clue as to why. I had evidently suffered a head injury, and since it was unlikely I climbed into the container on my own, I would assume I was at the hands of someone else. I didn't even remember my name at this point, but had some hope that if I survived whatever I would regain enough memory to make sense to me. It was pretty clear someone had taken a dislike to me and had gone to some degree of trouble to rid themselves of me. But with no memory of any incidents taking place, I could only speculate what may have happened. My hands were free, although one had a small rope attached to it, like I had been bound at one time. I don't know if I had escaped or if my captors had simply released the ties that bound my hands together. I had a wristwatch. I could feel the band around my wrist, and I kept squinting trying to see it in the dark, but accidentally pressed the button on top which lit a light inside the watch. It was a weak blue light, but I used it anyway to get a glimpse of my current prison. I was certainly correct in my summation that my structure was wood. It seemed to be a barrel, like a wood wine barrel or whiskey barrel, minus the wine or whiskey. In fact, I could smell no aroma from either ingredient in the barrel, so it had perhaps not been used for such a task. I could feel an occasional bumping into some solid objects that pounded the side of my restrictive wooden home. The barrel moved up and down like a roller coaster, Being confined to a small wooden space had taken its toll on my body. My legs ached from being bent up into my body for so long. My shoulders throbbed from being shoved up against the side of the barrel. My neck and back throbbed with pain shooting through them. One of the jolts against some solid object had knocked out a knothole from one of the panels in the side of the barrel. I turned myself in the barrel to align my eye with the hole. I could at least see out of that small opening until I was floating down a river toward something as yet unknown. I didn't know what river I was traveling down, but I could tell it was along a wooded area. I could see trees along each side of the river with rocks and boulders scattered along the path. I estimated the river was about 30 feet wide. It seemed to go on forever, and I had no idea how deep it was, and I prayed I didn't find that out. I could see some rocks push out, blocking the path the barrel was traveling, and I had some hope that I would hit one of these rocks and it would stop my travel. I could see no other possibility for this trip to end without something striking the barrel with enough force to break through some panels to give me my freedom, with the hopes of no personal damage. I couldn't tell from the outside, but I assumed this barrel was made like most, with metal bands that wrapped around at the top and the bottom to hold the barrel in place. Since those metal bands were on the outside, they weren't visible from the inside. I surmised barrels were not intended to be viewed from the inside. They weren't designed for human travel either, so comfort was not a consideration in their construction. I was beginning to cramp in places I didn't even know I had. For the rest of the story, please follow the links at the end of this video.